Welcome, everyone. Today's topic of conversation is the changes that Walmart rolled out to their paid search criteria and algorithm. So I don't know about you, Toby, but April 5th is a day that will live in infamy in my memory, as we woke up on April 6th and the whole world of paid search at Walmart was different. So some of the suppliers on the call today, I'm sure, got the same email that we did from Walmart, mentioning the changes and really marketing it as a relaxing of the restrictions, a more equal and equitable playing field, a more open playing field. And as Toby, you and I deal with this every day with each of the clients that we serve, we have a unique perspective on it, and at the very least, some history under our belt with the new criteria, the new changes, and that's what we're going to dive into today. So the first thing that definitely happened is the top 128 organic restriction was removed. And this was definitely on Walmart's behalf an attempt to, like I said, open up paid search to all brands of all different sizes, manufacturers of all different sizes. Not that small brands couldn't get into the top 128 before, but this definitely opens what I like to call ad inventory up. As we work with suppliers, they want to know what their promotable inventory is, and by definition, those are items that can be promoted to the higher up in the grid with paid search. So I'm starting to see that those restrictions take place, the loosening of the restrictions take place. But Toby, I'm curious from your perspective, what are the implications of this? What are you seeing change in terms of the advertisers that now have access to paid search on Walmart.com, as well as manufacturers that may have been participating in paid search for a long time? What is the difference that you're seeing to their portfolios, and what options they now have at their disposal?
Yeah, I mean, it has been to your point, a wild change in how both organic and paid surfaces on site. So manufacturers and both suppliers and sellers have had to try to figure out how to best navigate that new stream. And so what we've been seeing on our end is, Walmart originally sold this in as giving the capability for these smaller sellers to be able to really start, fighting for that share above the fold that they might not have been able to previously obtain from the restrictions that were in place. I think that is true to a degree, but because it is still in a first price auction, which hopefully will change soon, right now we are living in a moment of a little bit of a rich gets richer situation, right? So the larger manufacturers and the greater ones who own a little bit more of that share already are able to place at a much more consistent rate into these above the fold placements. So while we are seeing capability for some of these smaller brands to start playing, the opening up of the relevancy hurdles has also allowed a lot of difference in how advertising can function on the site, just because of the fact that it has gone a lot looser than we expected, right? We thought that the relevancy hurdles were going to open up a little bit, and we've seen this massive opening to the point that there's a lot of crossover that can occur now, and things like conquesting are now becoming things that actually might be viable. So, a lot of brands are really starting to play around with this, but I think because of the fact that second price hasn't rolled out yet, we haven't seen the true implications of what's going to happen.
Absolutely. And, June 6th is the next date on my calendar for when that second price auction is targeted to roll out. We'll get to some of the implications or future implications of that just here in a moment. But, WhyteSpyder's research showed that the day that these changes went into effect, there were 13% more sponsored positions available in the search grid. That's a fact. There's more opportunities to place sponsored products throughout the search grid. From my perspective, I would agree with you. It's definitely in a rich getting richer situation. Now, part of that is some of the smaller brands understanding this is a capability and then figuring out how to implement that in their business. One thing for sure is that there are still relevancy restrictions, although they're different than what they were in the previous model, where you can now be outside of the organic top 128 and advertise, but it doesn't mean that every single product on the search grid is able to be advertised. From my perspective, organic optimization is still the best way to serve efficient ads. And I believe that because we see in this new model, the cost to serve ads being a function of your relevancy, and organic search position can be a proxy for that relevancy score. It's a function of that relevancy and the bid amount. So less relevant items that are usurping the organic algorithm and jumping themselves to the top of the search grid, the less relevant you are to that keyword, the more you're going to pay for ads, because Walmart wants to serve the most relevant products to its consumer. And if you want to go against that organic relevance distinction, then you are going to pay a little bit more. Are you seeing your clients pay more or less on average for a CPC today, Toby?
Yeah, so I mean, right now, on average, CPCs have dropped very slightly, but it is mostly because of the fact that we have made adjustments to bidding, to your point, to take advantage of some of the items that now have these relevancy opportunities to be able to serve a little bit more efficiently. So it's less of a nuance of just a direct action and more of reaction, though I would hope that with the second price auction, we might see some of that direct action occur. But I would 100% agree with you that, when it comes down to it, the paid search optimizations that can be made are all going to be a function of organic optimization. If we do not optimize organic first, it doesn't matter how well you do with paid, because to your point, it's going to make your bids more efficient. But anecdotally, even further, you can bring a consumer to site all day, right? You can bring them to a product page, but if your product page is not optimized to its fullest extent, you are risking the actual conversion of that consumer, because media is only an action to drive views. It is not an action to actually drive a conversion. So that organic is the first and foremost thing that anyone should be thinking about before they start diving into the media aspects.
I couldn't agree with that more. The most important thing you can do to get your item more visible on Walmart.com is to improve your conversion rate. The algorithm is programmed to reward those items that the consumer interacts with and then says, yes, I want to buy this item. It's really a function of the consumers voting on the products that they want to see at the top. And some of the best way to do that is optimize organically, keywords in the title, making sure your taxonomy and your attributes are correct, but also having that really category specific content. If we understand conversion rate to be a function of traffic and sales increasing at the same rate, paid search can often increase the traffic, but if the conversion and sales don't increase at the same rate, you're actually almost hurting your organic position. You see that play out as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've seen it, actually work against manufacturers, suppliers, sellers multiple times, where they invest overly into media without first course correcting their own content. And because of that, they actually negatively impact their relevancy, and it causes your costs to go up. And often, if you don't catch it soon enough, you can put yourself into a hole that you will never get yourself out of. I've seen items die a very slow death because they never optimized properly, and they invested far too much, far too soon before the item was ready to actually be advertised efficiently.
And then you just depended on that promotional spend, and it's tough to kind of get that needle out of the vein once it's in. So we got a question from the audience of what's the best way to optimize organically, and we could probably go into a whole hour-long webinar on that. But I would say, from the WhyteSpyder perspective, it's first having a keyword target, right? And that's a core competency of what WhyteSpyder does, is help you identify those highest volume non-branded keywords on Walmart.com. From there, simple optimizations are including the keyword in your title and multiple times throughout your description and content. Having good quality scores is a good barometer of are you meeting Walmart's criteria for content. And then through our managed service Search Sensei offerings, we're able to analyze the kind of taxonomy and setup of the item to make sure that the algorithm is seeing your item appropriately, and it knows which keywords to include it in and which keywords to prioritize it. But at the end of the day, like I said, it's the shopper's decision to once they find that item and they interact with it, your content will convert them, and that will be the best way to optimize organically, is to get more people to buy your item. Simple, I know, but yeah, definitely, like I said, could spend a whole hour on that. Kind of back to the paid search question. One of the big changes that the shopper sees to the search grid is now items. Previously, an item would forfeit its organic position for a higher sponsored position. And now the change that the shopper sees in the grid is that items are duplicated. So you can be organically in spot 25, you can be paid at number 1, and we're seeing those paid positions kind of duplicate at the top of each page. Toby, something you and I have talked about is at what point does it become not incremental to promote, to leave your item organically within the top 10, the top 15, and find another item that has a little bit more headroom? And I know Flywheel's done a ton of research on the diminishing returns of duplication throughout the search grid. Tell us a little bit more about some of the guidelines that you follow when understanding which items to select for promotion in paid search and which ones to kind of optimize organically and let sell without the investment.
Absolutely, yeah. And there's a rhyme and reason to everything, right? So there's certainly times where it might make sense to advertise a product that's already sitting organically in the top 5 to block out a competitor. Maybe that cost is lower for you and it's more efficient, so you can focus funds elsewhere. But Flywheel's general philosophy is to focus on items that are far down at page 1 or at the top of page 2. So we're talking items that are somewhere sitting below organic rank 30, but are above organic rank 50, 60. And the reason why is this is your sweet spot. This is where you're relevant enough to be able to get a decent cost to be able to place into those upper placements, especially with this new relevancy change. But it will still allow you the opportunity to bring in a highly incremental product, and that product is going to have more likelihood, if you advertise it properly and consistently, to grow within its organic ranking. And then at that point, you can in a more long-term play, be able to start reducing that ad spend. You have a higher organic ranking for that product. You rinse and repeat that process, and that's going to allow you to grow greater share. The way we really think about it, if you want to get really simplistic, is it's the scroll, right? More than 2 scrolls, the consumer overall conversion rate drops by over 30%. And now that's particular to organic and paid. So it's really important that from an advertising perspective, you are thinking about where is your item already sitting. There is a fantastic reason to advertise a product that is already organically ranked 10. That's still low enough to be very incremental because you're giving the consumer the opportunity to see that product twice as they scroll. And if they only have to scroll once and they see the product once and they make that one scroll, they see it again, there's a very high likelihood that you're actually going to generate a higher rate of conversion because they are being inundated with that ad. So it allows a lot of opportunity to grow a product that is already strong, but put it into a position of power in one of those 1 to 5 organic rankings. It also gives you the opportunity to grow the low organic ranking products. It's really dependent on what your strategy is needed and what your portfolio looks like. For the grander portfolios, go for those lower ones. For the smaller portfolios, it might make more sense to go for those organic ranked products that are already in the 10 to 15 range.
I couldn't agree more. The definition of incrementality is it's one of the hardest things to find in our industry. But one of the good things for advertisers now is they can clearly see where their item is organically, so they can measure that incrementality where it used to be hidden before. And the only way to find out where your item would be if you weren't serving the ad is to pause the campaign and then find it in the search grid. Now that information is readily available, it makes it easier on advertisers to understand what they're getting for their investment. And that's a key tenet of our philosophy for paid search, is maximizing that delta, but also just relaying that in terms that digital merchandisers, in-store brick and mortar merchandisers understand, where is my product today? Where can it be? And how much does it cost to get there? And it's our job as advisors to minimize that cost and do it as efficiently as possible. But having that strategy portfolio wide of where are my items, where do they need to get, and what am I willing to spend? Again, it's our job to push that spend as far as it can go. But it's a conversation that needs to be had at the portfolio or the brand level. Absolutely. So we got a question from somebody obviously in the toy space, and I know you work in that category, Toby. So the question is, are you seeing that the relevancy hurdles are not relaxing in all categories? This particular manufacturer is not seeing a ton of relaxation of those restrictions in the toy space. And I would agree, kind of at the surface level, it's not obvious that, oh my gosh, I have all these new items to advertise. But from my perspective, and would love to hear yours, Toby, is the restrictions are loosened across the board. How it manifests itself in your category, in your keywords, and to your portfolio varies item to item, keyword to keyword, but I am seeing it across the board. Are you as well?
Yeah, I would say I am seeing it across the board. To your point, it really depends on the density of the auction, right? So if there's a lot of different product differentiation within the particular category, both within organic and paid, you're going to see a larger noticeable impact in how advertising is occurring and how organic is changing its face out. But if it is an area, particularly maybe you're looking at branded delivery, or you're looking at keywords that are maybe more long tail, you're not going to see as much change, not because the hurdles haven't changed the same way. Right. It's more just the the situation of how those items are actually facilitated towards the relevancy. The longer tail you get, or that brand term that you get, that means that what you're going to see is very similar to what you saw previously. The difference being that advertising might now be slightly different. You might see competitors starting to appear in your brand terms where they hadn't ever before. You might be starting to see certain brands who are larger companies that maybe didn't own a ton of visibility before. Maybe they didn't increase ad spend at all. It's just now the products that they were promoting previously that couldn't serve are able to serve because they have a larger presence.
Exactly. So would your recommendation then be to put all of your items into campaigns to understand what can serve, and then kind of edit or kind of dial it in once you kind of understand what your available products are?
Yeah, absolutely. Working with different products and trying to understand where there's opportunity is certainly something that I would recommend creating. If you have the ability, do it at the single SKU level so that you can get the data points within each and every item. If you don't have that ability, a multi-SKU campaign is also fantastic. Now, the problem with a multi-SKU to always keep in mind is that it is going to serve the product that is most relevant. So if you already know a product has the ability to serve, don't include that product in the campaign because it's going to be the one to serve. So you want to make sure you're only including products where you're not sure if they actually have that capability so that you can gather those learnings.
I totally agree. We're getting a lot of questions, so I'm going to kind of intersperse these throughout our conversation. The first one that I'm excited to answer, because I have a really good answer to it, is where is there a good place to retrieve page ranking? And SKU Ninja is the foremost software and powered by the insights that from the team that I have the pleasure of leading. But that is a core competency of not only our software offering, but how we deploy our managed services. We need to know exactly where every item is and every keyword every day. We go 256 positions deep, and we create share of voice calculations on that. And I know Flywheel, so that's specific to Walmart on the SKU Ninja side. And I know Flywheel does that for Amazon as well as Walmart. Another quick question, center store food, what are the right conditions to use brand amplifier? SBAs, search brand amplifiers, that ad unit at the top of the search grid, really before the first sponsored or organic products in the search results, are a really great tool. For center store food, I can say I see really efficient prices in some of those core grocery categories. Working in the dairy and cheese categories, I see some of the lowest CPCs across the board in that category. Maybe they might go up as some of these folks are taking our advice and maybe entering the auction as we speak. But the right conditions are for products that you want to drive impressions on. SBAs are a great impression driver. They don't convert as high as the search grid because it is more like an advertisement, a display advertisement. So think of it as an impression driver. New items are a great application for SBAs, higher price points. Again, if you want to upsell the consumer before they even get to the search grid, huge opportunity there. And like I said, just the main benefit I see for SBAs is a very low CPM. That ad unit right now is on a CPC, a cost per click basis. And since not a lot of clicks occur, not as many clicks occur in the SBA as do in the search grid, you actually get a lot of free impressions. So I see, like I said, really, really efficient CPMs on SBAs. Do you have any other thoughts to add on SBAs, Toby?
No, I 100% agree with you. The only thing I would tack on there, because I think you said that perfectly, is just that if you're going to invest in it, Ryan, to your point, it is an awareness play. So just be prepared to potentially not see the highest return. That doesn't mean it's not a successful ad unit. It's just that you have to make sure that you are thinking about what is your KPI correctly for that particular ad unit. It's not going to perform the same way as search. Doesn't mean it's not valuable.
I couldn't agree more. Top of funnel is often occurs off-site, but if you think of Walmart.com, I'd say SBA is the most top of funnel on-site placement that you can get. So yeah, definitely aligned there. One more question here. Thoughts on auto versus manual campaigns? I've got lots of thoughts on this, but I'll kick it over to you, Toby, to see what your perception is first.
Yeah, so with autos versus manuals, generally speaking, we think that manuals are always the way to go, but autos have their place. We try to keep auto campaigns at the lowest spend possible. Particularly, I think autos find their sweet spot when their bids are actually close to their minimum, and then you leverage the multipliers that are available. Autos currently have about 2 to 3 placements, depending on what category you live in. Stock up is helpful for you. That's the third that you can place in that manuals cannot. And so that is the main reason why we would ever recommend leveraging autos. It's also a scalability thing. If you're really struggling to deliver with your manuals, autos tend to place into a lot of carousels. The problem being those carousels, similar to what we were just talking about with sponsor brand amplifiers, they're more of a visibility play. They don't drive a ton of conversion. So we really like to focus the grand majority, we're talking 80+% of your ad spend on the manual campaign side, because you can be keyword targeted. You can focus your advertising very specifically on what your goals are, whereas autos are going to be a bit fast and loose. And without negative targeting available in Walmart, it makes it very hard to control that auto campaign's delivery. What are your thoughts?
Exactly on the same page. Control and specificity are at the top of my list of what I want, attributes I want to see in campaigns. We have so much information at our fingertips. We know exactly where you should be advertising. Whether your products are eligible to get there is, kind of what we figure out along the way and dial in that efficiency. But through our prioritized keyword list, I know what the most valuable real estate on all of Walmart.com is for your products. So in that case, we do the analysis to figure out what products are the best to advertise there. But if you give me $1, I know exactly where I want to spend that dollar, and I know where I want to spend the second dollar and the third dollar and the millionth dollar. And we have a really, I don't want to say strict, but well-defined set of priorities for where we want to advertise. To your point, Toby, auto does 2 really good things. It enacts the kind of traditional marketing tactic of cast the net wide, see where the best results are, and funnel investment there. We can kind of skip that step because of the intelligence we have about, again, where is that most valuable real estate on Walmart.com. The second good part about auto campaigns is those secondary and tertiary placements, like you said. It's a nice kind of enhancer to a really well-derived keyword campaign strategy. And I think, Walmart will add more placements to the auto universe. Before the Project Glass transition, where Walmart was still operating 2 distinct sites, one of the most efficient, highly converting placements that we saw was that stock up page. So it's interesting to me as I see Walmart bring back points of disruption through the checkout process. Right now, I'd say they're kind of lacking. But again, on the old website, there was this stock up page that as you hit checkout on your cart, it brought up the screen of items that the consumer had previously interacted with. And it said, hey, did you forget any of these to add to your basket? That was the best place to advertise because, again, the organic mix was products that the consumer was familiar with. They had bought before. And that was the most organic feeling inorganic placement. So therefore it converted at a very, very high rate. So auto bids, those placement multipliers, finding those corners of the site where you can get really, really efficient targeted returns is a great way to use auto bid. But again, when the majority of the clients that I manage ad spend for, we do manual exact match campaigns because we have that roadmap of where to spend your first, second, and last dollar. Another question here on auto campaigns, do you get visibility of what keywords and search terms your ads are showing? It kind of depends on what software you're using. I know the Walmart API does break out keywords. If you're using kind of their native console, it's a little bit tough to get that level of visibility. Thankfully, we have software both through Flywheel and WhyteSpyder leverages Perpetua, which is our sister company up in Toronto. The reporting is intense and very well flushed out there to the point where, yes, I strive to give my clients a list of keywords that we're spending their dollars on and the rate of return for each keyword. Keywords in this world are digital shelves, and each one is unique, and each one should be treated as its own, campaign, its own entity. So I love the question about the visibility of keywords. I'd say if you're working with us, if you're working with Flywheel, absolutely, that's a hallmark of our reporting and our strategy. If you're trying to do this on your own, it might be a little bit tough to pull that information out. But Toby, what do you think about keyword targeting and kind of reporting in that way of looking at each digital shelf and the investment you're putting towards it?
Yeah, and I again completely agree with you. It's about looking at those manual campaigns and those keywords there. But with the autos, we do, to your point, have that software in place to be able to pull it in and then automatically harvest it into manual campaigns if we see potential from them. So if you see a conversion occur, the system will automatically pull it into your manual. So those autos are essentially a keyword harvesting function. The greatness about that is really that you can understand where there's efficiency at play or where you might be missing a potential longer tail keyword that, Ryan, to your point, might not be the taxonomy for that first, second dollar, but it could be your third or fourth. And those low-hanging fruit opportunities are nice ones for you to be able to use your proliferary items that you're advertising. So items that maybe are not your priorities, but they might be items that can generate awareness, interest by consumers. And if we can get a little bit of dollars behind them, you can actually generate quite a nice bit of incremental sales coming from them. And that way you don't have to focus your major dollars towards it, but you can focus your major dollars towards the next big thing.
Yeah. Absolutely. Once again, we're aligned here, Toby. It makes me think of, well, we'll get to that in a second. There's another question that's popped up and we'll go in this direction here. So the question is around conquesting. And, you know, Walmart has talked for a while about conquesting is something on the roadmap. It's on the horizon. And I can say a lot of the clients that we deal with, that's at the top of their list. I would spend more money on Walmart advertising if I could competitive conquest negative keywords. To your point about auto campaigns driving a lot of branded placements is probably second on that list. But back to conquesting, right now, the restrictions, the loosened restrictions aren't making conquesting any easier, because in order to conquest a competitor's brands in the search grid, you need to be there organically first. And Walmart's algorithm does a pretty good job of making sure that you own 100% of share of voice organically on your own brand name. I'd say the caveats to that are categories with private label competition and categories with a lot of third-party sellers. So as I'm deploying that first dollar, that second dollar, that last dollar, number one is, do you have 100% share voice on your branded keywords? You should own your brand name. If somebody is searching for Claritin, or if somebody is searching for Barbie, right, as another brand name, they should see all of your products. Now, if there's private label, like I said, or if there's third parties at the top of the search grid, I'm going to spend money there by necessity, not because I want to defend the top of that search grid. I would say the other option for conquesting currently is through SBAs, but I know Walmart is really like manually checking those campaign by campaign. I've tried it a couple of times and I've just gotten notes back saying we didn't launch this campaign because you're trying to conquest. So I'd say not right now. It's not really a tactic that is possible right now, unless you do happen to optimize your products organically for a competitor's brand name, but I don't see that happening very often. Toby, do you have any different thoughts on that, or have you seen pretty much the same thing?
It's mostly the same. I actually do slightly differ here on this one. And so with conquesting, I completely agree that the brand name, so going after a Claritin, super hard, almost impossible, right? You have to sit there organically. Where we're seeing it occur more on our end is any kind of long tail. So Claritin, and then going into that longer tail, Barbie dolls is the example of Barbie you gave. Any kind of long tail where that starts to populate means that you're going to start to see some competitors flowing in, because they have the relevancy to the secondary term, and that therefore they might be sitting on that page, especially if you don't have, to your point, a giant portfolio. That means Walmart always wants to fill the page. So if you don't have that giant portfolio, some other brands might live there, especially as you get longer and longer tail. So we have been seeing that occur more often, sponsored products particularly. With sponsored brand amplifiers, to your point, they're super strict about it. Walmart's rules of thumb is you can't conquest with sponsored brand amplifiers. However, we have found that there are some loopholes that we've been able to take advantage of by certain bidding structures. And there's also the way that you can conquest that's a little bit more, it's not quite as direct, and that's going after the item pages. That item buy box placement that appears underneath of an add to cart button is a great place to play. The relevancy hurdles are much lower. You can serve there at a much more efficient rate, because the organic aspects of it don't live within that, since there is no organic listing on an item page. So it's a little bit easier to serve there as long as you live within the category of the item you're targeting. And Walmart last year released the manual ability to target buy box placement. So you can actually target an item's title and place onto that placement. It's not always a given. And Ryan, to your point, if a brand is running their own auto campaigns, they are likely going to protect those buy box placements very well, because Walmart is going to give them relevancy to place there. So even if they're bidding significantly lower than you are, they will still likely place. So it takes a lot of careful calculation with your bids to actually be able to place into those. But with Flywheel's tech and with WhyteSpyder's tech, we've been able to figure out how to place into those. Though again, it's quite nuanced. It's not very a direct conquesting approach that you could go with maybe an Amazon.
And is that tactic fueled by placement multipliers in those auto campaigns?
Yes, completely fueled by placement multipliers. If you don't leverage them, you're just going to overpay for all your other placements. Sure, you'll get into those buy box placements, but you're also paying probably 3x what you need to for the others.
Exactly. Throughout all of this, it's the work you put in equals the results that you get out, right? This is not like a set it and forget it strategy, but it's why you and I are employed, right? Developing these strategies and then, executing them at a daily granular level. Really, it's a lot of maintenance. And I know Flywheel's done a great job at, empowering its technology to do a lot of that heavy lifting for you. But I think computers are never going to be as smart as humans, and a human watching your campaigns and understanding your strategy is always going to be the best way to do it. So yeah, I think that's really important to remember. Another thing that is on the horizon is the ability to advertise variants. So for those on the line that may not know exactly what I'm talking about, if you're selling t-shirts and you have a red, blue, green, black, and white t-shirt all varianted together on the same PDP, meaning it takes up one tile on the search grid, and once you click into it, you can see all the different colors of the t-shirts. As it stands today, you can only advertise that hero variant being defined as when you click onto the item, what's the first color that you see. If it's black and you want to advertise the red version of your t-shirt in a red t-shirt query, variant advertising is something on the horizon. Toby, from my perspective, this is a great way for advertisers to increase conversion because you can get super targeted. Again, your red variant should be the advertised variant when the consumer is searching for red t-shirts. Do you see that playing out? And if so, how do you plan to execute some of that?
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. This is going to be a huge win for advertisers once it releases, and it's something we do on Amazon today. Right now, advertisers have to make a tough decision. Do I vary and make the consumer journey easier? So one less click, maybe two less clicks to find the product I want. It's just a simple color or size variation. Or do I break out those priority products of mine so that I can advertise them? That is a tough decision for a company to make, right? So with the variant advertising, that's going to allow you to start actually varying any product you want based on your ability to create a better consumer journey. And it is also going to help your organic ranking as well. And on top of that, that means that you can now advertise any of those products. So it's going to really just open the doors for companies to be able to start really thinking about, how do I want my consumer journey to be? Advertising is secondary to, again, what we talked about at the very beginning, organic content, and that variation is part of that organic content.
If anybody's wondering what we're talking about, go check out the diapers category. The diapers category is the one that, from my experience, is varianted by definition. Every single item, because you have both count and size options for every single SKU and brand and sub-brand. It's the norm in that category. So I'm sure the diaper manufacturers out there are drooling at the opportunity to advertise a specific life stage or a specific size or account to those shoppers that are declaring their desire to see those type of products when they search specifically for something other than diapers and include those size and count keywords in their search. So yeah, see a major impact there. But any category that's dealing with multiple sizes, multiple colors, multiple price points, I think it's a really unique tool. And again, the biggest thing that I get pushback from my clients on is, great, I love your strategy, but how can you just convert at a higher rate? Do exactly what you're doing, but do it better. And I can't wait to enact some of that variant advertising to drive the conversion rates in some of those longer tail keywords. So starting to get some questions about second price auction. Before we answer that, I'll just take a moment to talk about some of the other changes that Walmart made in anticipation of second price auction. To be clear, these algorithm changes happened in early April, but we haven't yet gone to second price auction. We're still on first price. So the algorithm and the criteria for advertising totally changed, but the way that advertisers are being charged haven't. Now, from my perception, and Toby, I'd love to hear your comments on this, Walmart is taking kind of a page out of the Amazon playbook where every item has an expected number of clicks, and the expected number of clicks are proportionally connected to, or directly connected to, the amount that you have to be willing to bid to get the placement. So for example, if an item is projected to get 500 clicks and the bid is $1, that's $500 of ad revenue. And conversely, an item with 100 projected clicks would need a $5 bid to make those two items equal. So as we get into second price auction, Toby, how do you think that will affect CPCs, and how can advertisers take advantage of that?
Yeah, so I mean, in the way that I foresee it rolling out, and how Flywheel's planning, is that we're going to see a initial reduction in CPC. We should see it be probably not as significant as one might expect, but I do think it will see a deduction, at least in the double digits, but then rapidly it'll approach the same cost. And the reason for that being that manufacturers are going to change their advertising strategies. You're going to be able to start being a little bit more nuanced with how you do things. You can safely feel like you can bid at a 10, a 12, a $15 bid because you know you're not actually going to clear at that cost. So there's going to be a lot of higher bidding. And in terms of that as well, you know, Walmart just made a change in the last 2 weeks to change their max bid used to be $20. They just increased it to 100. And they did this in preparation for second price auction, because a max bid of $20 in the second price auction is actually very limiting. So they increased it to that $100 rate so that you can have full flexibility in how you want to advertise. So it's going to come to a facet of, I think it's going to be a bit of a roller coaster, right? We're going to start with a drop. We're going to see it increase pretty rapidly back up to its regular rate. We're probably going to see it increase past its previous rate. And then we're going to see it drop again, because we're going to see a lot of advertisers testing and trying to figure out how this is actually going to help their advertising, or how it could potentially hurt their advertising. I think for the most part, it's going to be really helpful. I'm really excited about it. But if not done correctly, there could be some implications to bidding too aggressively. And I think that's why we're going to see that roller coaster effect.
And you can essentially outbid yourself, even in a first or second price auction. I think one of the things that advertisers should be cognizant of is, you know, again, using that expected click methodology. Don't bid $5 on an item that is very popular and $5 on an item that is less popular. You want to have that inverse relationship. Again, assuming that organic search position is a good proxy for relevance, which I do assume that, and it's a good kind of rule of thumb for advertisers that don't have the level of knowledge and intelligence that we do. You know, have some sort of rubric or scale to say, what is my max bid, and then scale that up or down depending on the item's organic search rank. Just another note, again, this is the terminology, and this is the world we live in every day, and kind of remembering that not everybody is as in depth in this as we are. A second price auction means if I bid $10 and Toby bids $2, I get the placement for $2.01. A first price auction, which is where we are now, means if I'm willing to bid $10, Walmart says thank you for the $10, even though you outbid the number two advertiser by a full $8. So that's second price auction. Walmart is moving to a modified second price auction, and I've been talking to a lot of partner managers at Walmart Connect about this recently, and having the definition of the modified version of the second price auction is something that we're asking for, and we're having those conversations. Ultimately, it's probably going to be up to us as advertisers to figure out exactly how it's modified. But there is a function of, again, the other items in the auction are dictating how much the cost of that slot is. The math and calculations there are, again, we're working on it, figuring out exactly how that manifests itself. As soon as we start getting some of the results from how advertisers are charged, we'll have some more intelligence on it. But Toby, would you have anything to add on that as to what exactly a definition of a modified second price auction is?
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, the way we're seeing it, and the way that Walmart's kind of explained it to us with our conversations with their teams, if we break it down in the most simplistic of conversation, if the Amazon platform has 40 advertisers, regardless of what 40 advertisers they are and which win the 12 slots on the page, all 40 impact the auction. So they all impact your cost. On Walmart, they're going to essentially look at those same 40 advertisers, but then they're going to look at the 12 ad slots available, and everyone else is going to get removed. So now you have the 12 advertisers who have made it into the auction, and those 12 fight it off for cost. There's a lot of other facets that we don't understand yet. And Ryan, to your point, it's going to be up to us as advertisers to figure that out. But in a nutshell, that means that your cost is going to be different. It's not going to be as simple as 1 cent above the second advertiser's cost because of the implications of just removing some of the people in the auction during that initial stance.
Absolutely. And from what we've seen, those restrictions are not only organic search position, but also like the taxonomy and setup of the item. All of these things contribute to the definition of relevancy per the Walmart algorithm. The item needs to perform. So history is an important designation in relevance, as well as, again, the setup. What we have to remember here is that these aren't humans making these decisions. This is an algorithm, literally a robot that is programmed by humans and can often think on its own. But if you don't give the system enough information about your product, it's going to make mistakes. So one of the key recommendations and things that we facilitate for our clients is full attribution. Again, think of it as like the online item file, but the computer doesn't know that you're trying to sell a cell phone case versus a coffee mug, right? It just sees an item ID and content, and you have to give it all of that information. So I would encourage all suppliers to dedicate the time and resources necessary to completing your attribution on Walmart.com. It will save you money. It will boost your sales. It will boost your organic performance. And if you're advertising those products, it will save you money. Anything to add there, Toby, on relevance?
In regards to relevance, my biggest thing that I'm most excited about when it comes to second price auction and relevance is that with the tools that are available from Perpetua, Flywheel, WhyteSpyder, the automation right now in a first price auction is great, right? It helps you find what keywords you're going to place into. It helps you be more efficient with your cost. But in the second price auction, it's going to take that relevancy into account as it just starts to adjust bids, because it's going to be able to see how does my bid get impacted in terms of actual cost to serve to place, and it's going to retroactively adjust your bid to find you the most efficient rate on those most important keywords. So I'm really excited about this change to the second price auction, because I think not only is it going to be better for advertisers, but it's going to be better for AI. It's going to allow automation to help us, Flywheel, Perpetua, WhyteSpyder, we all see tech as kind of a tailwind, right? It's to support the brains behind the machine, because Ryan, you said this earlier, the human touch is really what adds to this. Tech is helpful all day, but a machine can never really keep up with these massive changes. Amazon changes all the time, but they're very small little changes. Walmart makes huge sweeping changes. And so a machine just can't keep up with that as Walmart rapidly grows and fills in this space and becomes a major competitor to Amazon and the others out there.
Absolutely. Another question coming in: what are the chances that they hit the June date for second price auction rollout? I don't know, Toby, you and I could take odds on this. I'm feeling pretty confident that June 6th, we'll wake up that morning and second price auction will be in place. That's anecdotal through conversations with individuals at Walmart Connect. I am a big fan of taking Walmart's dates and adding like 6 weeks to it and expecting it to actually happen then. But no, I really do think June 6th will be the date for second price. And
I agree. Yeah, it's often they are a little delayed, but this has been something that has been coming for a while, and it is probably their most important release this year, and they are taking it very seriously. So I would be surprised if it's pushed back much further than June 6th, if at all.
And maybe June 6th sees the return of rich media as well. We're fingers crossed on that. We know that's coming up soon. Hopefully we get 2 Christmas presents on June 6th, but we'll see on that one. So what we've been talking about is, I'd say, like a 2-dimensional view. We're talking about items and keywords and one bid amounts, and kind of having that picture create the full day worth of results. Something that I've really been including in our strategies recently is intraday multipliers and intraday share of voice, because the search grid is a living, breathing thing. And while we scrape hundreds of thousands of keywords every single day, we're scraping them every hour, and sometimes that's not even enough to keep up with changes on the search grid. So this idea of intraday multipliers to set a daily bid and then figure out the hours of the day where either you're losing or you can't afford to lose. When is your shopper traffic concentrated? What hours of the day? So I know, intraday share of voice is something that Flywheel uses not only to automate bids, but also just to learn about the competitive landscape and how your competitive brands are trying to spend their money as efficiently as possible. Toby, what are some of the tactics and strategies that you use to counter that competitive intraday multipliers, and how do you analyze that?
Yeah, so when we look through, the first thing we do, what you mentioned before, is looking into that share of voice, right? So we pull share of voice all the way down to the hour, and by looking into that, we can start to understand how our competitors placing their ads. Are they doing any kind of intraday bidding? We can see that right off the bat by saying, are they not live during certain hours earlier in the day when they would have to be live if they were not using it? So we can first take that as an inference, and then also layer in, are they hitting caps throughout the day? We can see that from the share of voice changes within that data, and then use that to better adjust our own intraday bidding. A lot of these agencies out there, have intraday bidding that maybe is morning off, night off, afternoon off, certain day off. Flywheels and Perpetuas is built to specifically adjust the bid at a percentage all the way down to a 0.5 percentage, and adjust your percentage rate to increase or decrease your bid based on the hour of the day where we're maybe not seeing competitors play as often. In the first price auction world, we often had our bids decrease later in the day because a lot of competitors were hitting their budgets and capping out, and we could own that share. In a second price world, we're likely actually going to remove a lot of that bidding during the early parts of the day, because we want to get out of the auction when it's most dense and filled with those large competitors, the rich get richer that we were talking about before. Let's let them fight it out, right? Let them cause their high CPCs. Generally speaking, you're going to, just from the data we've pulled, you're going to start to see a pretty massive belt curve downward right around that, early morning period. And when that happens, when mom, takes the kids to school, everyone gets into work, that's usually when that delta starts going down dramatically. And so we want to be able to take advantage of that and start serving our ads at that point. We layer in a lot of other factors as well, from display platforms we have access to, proxy retailers we have access to, clean rooms, so that we can pull in data to understand specifically for a specific manufacturer, when do their products convert at the best time of the day and on what days, and then we adjust our bidding strategies around that.
So you're saying that there's actually a different cost to advertise every hour of the day and maybe even every minute of the day?
Yes, especially once it moves to second price.
Exactly. Yeah, I think there's a bit of a gamification to this as well. I mean, it's our job. It's something that we need to deliver to our clients. But this is one of the most fun parts of my job, is trying to figure out that competitive strategy and play the game. And there's I'll be honest, a personal satisfaction when I see a competitor, spend their budget earlier than I'm sure they wanted to, and then I can jump in on behalf of our clients and get that placement for a really lower, more efficient cost, simply by putting pressure on competitors to spend more when in the hours where the traffic isn't there, and then we can get the more valuable placements. Do you have any examples of you playing that game, or maybe like a Amazon Black Friday? Did you ever stay up all night long watching the competitors enter and leave the auction?
Yeah, we've done it a lot. We actually have internal competitions about it often, especially during those like Prime days, deals of the days, where we or deals, summer deals days for Walmart, where we'll try to see who can cap out their main competitor first. It's actually one of my our co-founders over here at Flywheel's favorite story is during a massive part of Prime Day a few years back. A major brand in the consumer category got capped out at 12:30 in the afternoon and spent quite a large sum of funds, without getting too detailed, we'll talk six figures here, by just pushing them through and making them spend all this money without us spending much at all. We were able to push them out and then own the lion's share of the overall share of voice on those key terms throughout the rest of Prime Day, which resulted in fantastic results for our client. And for that competitor client, they ended up not turning back on for another month because they used all their money in a day.
I love those stories. I get irrationally excited about things like that. So if your current agency or ad partner is not as geeked out on this stuff as Toby and I are, come talk to us, because it's obviously something that lives in our brains every day. And like I said, we're competitive and we love to win for our clients. So any other questions from the audience? Brooke, I know you've been feeding me a bunch, but if there's any that I missed, please let me know before we kind of get to closing remarks here. Or if there's any other questions from the audience, please feel free to chat those right now. All right, not seeing any other questions come in. Toby, to kind of take us home here, what do you see as the future for paid search on Walmart, other than our unique interest in it and just getting better at playing the game and understanding our brand's strategies and our clients' wishes? What else do you see on the horizon?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's going to just continue to grow and grow on site. Walmart has a lot of really interesting things that they're planning to roll out, a lot of which is metrics. So I think that, the placements themselves are going to continue to change. The amount of placements, the display ads that surface, they just released off-site display that we're now integrated with their Trade Desk partnership, their on-site display that you can now activate directly through Walmart's portal, and we can now manage that out hands-on keyboard. So now we can create that full funnel advertising effect. And that's what Walmart's trying to do. They want to bring more consumers into the site. They want to grow their website. They are the largest grocer in the entire country, but they still have a little bit of a ways to go with that Walmart.com site. And they are making the moves necessary to really grow this thing and build it into a true competitor to the large e-commerce brands out there. I've loved to see it happen. The changes that have occurred just over 2 years have been amazing. And I know that they have some really cool metrics that they are planning to come out with over the course of this year, as well as some pretty neat advertising effects as well. Video is a big one that's going to come to site. I don't have a direct timeline on when that's coming, but I know that's one that they're really excited about, and I'm certainly excited about as well. And as for now, they now have that off-site video that's running, both streaming TV as well as going after the standard video placements that you can access through the Trade Desk with a partner like Flywheel or Perpetua to be able to manage that as well.
Absolutely. For those of you unfamiliar with DSP, Walmart just started releasing their first party data to a DSP provider called the Trade Desk, and that allows advertisers to understand more about the humans, the actual shoppers that are interacting with these products, both from an organic and a paid standpoint. I think one of the cool things about Walmart advertising on Walmart.com is when people search milk on Walmart.com, the entire country is seeing those search results. So it's cool that we get to advertise to with such broad reach. But one of the downsides of that, and something that traditional advertising relies on, is audience creation. So this DSP option allows you to not only understand how to retarget consumers that may have interacted with your products but not bought, but also to target specific audiences. So I'm really excited for that, as well as you mentioned. I know video SBAs are definitely on the roadmap. I can't confirm their release date either, but I'm excited for that. And I would just say, I'll echo your point of the more metrics, the better. We at WhyteSpyder and at Perpetua and at Flywheel have access to intelligence and history and strategies built on data and metrics and analyzing the past. It's all in an effort to better predict the future. And I think Amazon has been forthright with a lot of that data to their advertisers, and to the point where most advertisers run to Amazon because they know that they can get some of those reporting and metrics, to the point where maybe Amazon's become a little bit saturated. Do you see that? And if clients out there or potential advertisers out there and they're trying to figure out, okay, I've got a really good ad business on Amazon, is Walmart the next place to spend their next dollar?
Absolutely, and often it should possibly and probably be one of the first places they spend their dollar. Amazon is just completely inundated with third party. They used to be the go-to place for reviews, and they still are to a degree, but more and more and more, those reviews are becoming less reliable. You may see thousands of reviews on a product, but those reviews are often not they are not actually provided from a consumer, as a lot of different brands look to game the system, whereas Walmart doesn't have that. Walmart's reviews are true to form. Those reviews are actually going to help you purchase a product. So while it is still growing, and building and becoming a giant like Amazon, it is the place where you can often be more efficient. And you're going to think of it like this. My co-founder always says this, right? You're getting to a water fountain. You don't want to be all the way at the back of the line when the water fountain gets most popular. No, you want to be getting into the line before it gets popular so that you are one of the first people to get up there. So you want to really make sure that you take advantage of it now before things get too crazy and it becomes the next or best Amazon.
Absolutely. And Walmart still has 4,700 stores where you can go pick up your frozen pizza or your ice cream that you advertised online and created that transaction there. So definitely, as you mentioned, the world's largest grocer, that's not going away anytime soon. And the online pickup and delivery channel is incredibly quickly growing and can be a really profitable source of incremental sales for suppliers out there. So that's the Walmart landscape in general. Hopefully, Toby and I have convinced you that we are the experts in the space and we are the right source to spend your ad dollars efficiently and impactfully. And with that, I'll open it up to any last questions or any closing remarks for you, Toby.
Great. I just wanted to make sure we didn't have any questions coming in, but yeah, I really appreciate the time, Ryan. Thank you for having me. Really enjoyed this conversation and looking forward to the next one.
Absolutely. Have a great day, everyone. Thanks for joining.